Welcome to episode 5 of Tales of Travel and Triumph, a travel literature book and film club. I'm Isabela, one of the hosts of this podcast.
Hi everyone, I'm Lauren, the other Vikings obsessed host. This week we just finished reading Erik the Red saga. It was awesome and it was something I've wanted to read for such a long time, so it definitely did not disappoint. Today, Isabela and I will be comparing and contrasting the saga to a new Netflix series called Erik the Red and the Gods of the North.
So Lauren, what did you think of Erik the Red saga?
I love the travel aspect of the saga. Due to their lack of resources during this time period, I was actually really impressed with how much they accomplished. Living the 21st century, it's difficult to imagine traveling without the help of the Waze app, but knowing the Vikings traveled without those resources is inspiring. I would be entirely lost without Apple Maps. The way Erik sailed from Iceland to Greenland was fascinating, considering the time period. But I will say I'm also interested in knowing more about Viking women.
Me too. I thought Gudrid's character was especially interesting because of the differences between Christianity and paganism. One of the things I liked was Erik's dark beginnings, how he had to leave his homeland because he killed a man, and how his wife chose to live her life with this exile. The journey to Greenland and Vinland really shows the Viking use of ships, and I especially liked any scenes of conflict because Viking warfare is something that I admire. I totally recommend Vikings, Vikings Valhalla, The Last Kingdom, and if you feel like having a laugh, Norsemen, as shows that have some historical accuracy and provide a gateway experience to the world of Vikings. Erik the Red and the Gods of the North is amazing. I binge watched it in 2 days. It is only 8 episodes, around 15 minutes each.
I binge watched it in 1 day. I loved it. So today we have a special guest star, Kayla Torres-Bassoon, and she is the screenwriter for Erik the Red and the Gods of the North. Welcome, Kayla.
Hello, I'm Kayla Torres-Bassoon. Thank you for having me here. I love the work you and Lauren have put into this podcast series. I have been a fan since your Christopher Columbus episodes last year. I am the screenwriter for the new Netflix series, Erik the Red and the Gods of the North. I'm so grateful that the show has gained such a large following.
It's actually trending in the top 10 right now, which is really exciting, and I'm sure you must be excited about that. And this is your first major screenwriting role, right?
Yes, I'm so humbled. I had worked on scripts in the past for episodes of shows like the adaptation of Rick Riordan's Magnus Chase and the Gods of Asgard. But working this closely with the director for this project and seeing my script adapted step by step has been a scary and wonderful experience. We have some really talented actors, some debuting and others more established. I have adapted the story of Erik the Red from the Vinland sagas, but the show is a historical fantasy retelling starring Michael Fassbender as Erik and his wife in real life, Alicia Vikander, as Erik's wife, Jodild. Seeing Erik come to life on screen was such a great moment for me. I remember the first time Fassbender came on set and read his first lines. I cried very unprofessionally.
I want to cry.
Yes, it was an embarrassing moment for me, but I was very excited to see the core message of my show come across to audiences so well. My show focuses on the unknown story, the untold lives of women who were more involved in history. Even though I titled the show Erik the Red and Gods of the North, the primary focus is on the women in Erik's life.
A woman narrates the show, so I think that primary focus is very evident. Would you say that the cinematography also adds to the female perspective throughout the show?
Yes, I believe it does. What stands out in this Viking show compared to others is that it demonstrates the intimacy of the female gaze for the viewers. The female gaze is discussed a great deal among those who analyze film and directors, but at its essence, what the female gaze does is evoke emotion for the series audience. When Jodild looks at Erik, we feel their closeness in a very vulnerable way. Jodild decides her fate. It is her choice to leave Iceland, not her father's choice or her husband's. She shows her own identity and autonomy. Female voices have been silenced throughout history. We got a lot of feedback on social media from viewers saying that their experience watching the series was impacted by the female gaze. The female gaze is all about vulnerability. It's not about objectifying, but showing life and love as a balance through emotion and small touches, where the camera lens really embodies the character and you are seeing life through their eyes.
That is amazing, and I think we can get a better understanding of these scenes because of how you explained the female gaze.
Women's roles during a time period that, from information on popular media we consume and according to historians is so based on masculine hierarchy, is something I wanted to subvert by showing how much importance and power women had during the Viking Age. This show differs from other Viking shows because it's from the female perspective. Normally, in shows like The Last Kingdom, which Isabela you mentioned earlier, the protagonist is a male, whereas I decided to focus heavily on Erik's wife and the way she views Erik. In a way, his legend lives on because of her.
So as much as I appreciated reading Erik the Red saga, I do wish it incorporated more female Vikings and the way they lived their lives. And what I loved about your series, Kayla, and what a lot of our fans loved about it, is that it took place from the perspective of Jodild, something that I'd never really seen in a Viking show before now. I was actually listening to an Apple podcast and stumbled upon Nancy Marie Brown, who is an expert in female Vikings. She's been doing this for years, and she's super passionate about female Vikings being misrepresented. She spoke on Noah Tetzer's podcast titled The History of Vikings, and she mentioned that female Vikings actually had a larger impact on Viking culture than we previously thought. What she explained is that when artifacts in the early 1900s were found in Vikings' graves, there was a huge bias present because only men were discovering these artifacts. In other words, men were discovering female Vikings, but assumed the bodies being found were men because women were housewives and didn't really have a place in society.
Yes, I agree. It's a controversial topic. When the body of a Viking warrior was found in Sweden, buried with many weapons and horses, it was thought at the time that it was the body of a male. However, in 2017, modern science tells us no, it's the body of a biological woman.
Brown talked about the Burka burial as well. DNA tests revealed to the collective shock of many scholars that a Viking warrior in a high-status grave in Sweden was actually a woman. And this finding really intrigues me, as it gives me the idea that Vikings history can be rewritten as time progresses. And Kayla, I wanted to know, what are your thoughts on this topic? We asked our fan base to complete a poll where they write questions they have for you, and someone did ask why your series is told from a female perspective.
Great question. Let me start with the burial. Hearing that story on the news made us really question, as I'm sure many history nerds and lovers of fierce heroines did, was this body only one of many warrior women of the era? To answer the viewer's question, I got the sense that their story needed to be told, and that is why I decided to display history in my show, as women being involved in politics and warfare. It is not the way that history was recorded, but I believe history is a living, breathing concept that can change with each new discovery, and it really depends on who is keeping the books. As a modern audience, we are used to telling tales and looking through fresh lenses, questioning everything, and I love this about our generation.
So I was interested in learning more about female Vikings. As I was researching for the episode of this podcast, I came across a website listing the detailed life of female Vikings as we know it. On a webpage titled Role of Women in Relation to Female Vikings, it is said that wealthier women had more opportunities back then than less fortunate women, as those who had servants and maids were able to supervise the cooking and cleaning rather than do it themselves.
That is precisely the reason I decided to make Jodild a woman who was born from nobility. She comes from a wealthy family, and her father's men train her to become a warrior. She trains with her best friend Kahild as well, and viewers later find out in the series that Kahild is Freya herself in human form. The honor of being a shield maiden is something she earns and embraces with pride.
Definitely, and that's why I admire Jodild's character so much.
It also brings in the idea of class divide. I remember when I was working on the first draft of the script, I asked my good friend Dr. Jackson Crawford, who is a specialist on the Viking Age. He gave me his sage advice on the matter. He said to me, Jodild would be a warrior because of her noble background, but if you want the audiences to really fall in love with her character, throw her out of her comfort zone and really show the audience how differently the position of Jodild and Erik are, and how she still embraces who he is. When Erik is made to be in exile because of the murder he commits, he really becomes no more than a servant in the eyes of others, less than that even because the servants have a home. Even so, Jodild travels with him to Greenland and goes on this long spiritual journey because of her faith in the gods and Erik.
That is a great point, Kayla. I love how you debunked the idea that women were not important figures in Viking history. We have heroes like Lagertha in show Vikings who kick ass and are both warriors and feminine women. Jodild is a shield maiden like Lagertha, who runs the household, takes care of the children, and shows up on the fields of battle. I was browsing YouTube the other day and was recommended a video called Female Viking Warriors in History, Legendary Valkyries and Shield Maidens. One of the quotes that the speaker, Kelly McQuire, said stood out to me. From the sagas, the most famous type of female Viking warrior was the Shield Maiden, who took up arms and fought side by side in battle with the men. Mirroring them in the spiritual world is the Valkyries, whose name literally means choosers of the slain. This show focuses on the mythology aspect, especially with its portrayal of Valkyries. While the saga does not focus heavily on Norse mythology with magic, omens, and gods, why did you decide to incorporate fantasy elements?
My love of Norse mythology and fantasy shows in general is the reason I decided to go this route, because it seems most exciting. Growing up, I read the stories like The Death of Balder and Loki's Children, and I wanted to add that element of wonder to the story that I didn't get enough of in Erik's saga. However, I lean more towards magical realism in this show because I decided to incorporate the gods looking over the humans and not interfering directly most of the time.
I love Norse mythology too. The fantasy elements with the gods reminds me of Neil Gaiman's book American Gods.
When the Raven appeared before Erik in episode 1, The Exile, just before he finds Greenland, it is a sign that Odin is watching him. The saga covers the conversion of Christianity in Greenland, but I wanted to show more of the pagan beliefs and customs in the series that I was interested in, and that I believe many fans of the fantasy genre would like to experience.
I think that is a great point. I'm a fan of the fantasy genre myself, and I know a lot of our listeners enjoy this genre. The conversion of Christianity in Greenland comes from Erik's son Leif. Hopefully, Erik the Red and the Gods of the North has more seasons where we can see this. Erik was very hesitant to embrace Christianity, and he is put in contrast with the religious Gutrid. The show does embrace paganism and fantastical elements, so that is a big way it differs from the saga. However, I think the show is accurate in its approach to illustrating Norse mythology and the beliefs of the Vikings.
Yes, I believe that as a firm believer of the old ways, Erik would be one of the last to transition into Christianity throughout the show, as he does in the sagas. It is also interesting to think about how fantastical aspects of Christianity, such as miracles and angels, tie along well with the spectacles of the gods and with Valkyries, who I think are the closest to angelic beings in Norse mythology. I know, Isabela, when you first contacted me, you had mentioned that your favorite scene was when the Valkyries descended from Valhalla, swooping down with their multicolored wings very majestically.
Yes, I love this scene because it incorporates everything we have been discussing so far. Valkyries are strong female warriors who are important figures in Norse mythology. This specific scene that we are talking about is not in Erik's saga. It is epic, with the Valkyries raining down from the sky. They are coming from Valhalla to take the deceased warriors home to their afterlife. The Valkyries themselves are beautiful and mystical. I have seen different portrayals of Valkyries like the one in Thor Ragnarok. The ones in this series are different because they don't speak but guide the souls of those vanquished. Great job on writing this scene.
Thank you. I had so much fun writing that scene, and for me, it really helped represent how women are respected not only in the mortal plane but the ethereal realm as well. They are protectors of the warrior's soul and have the power to choose who goes to Valhalla.
The music in this series does a great job transporting viewers to Erik's world.
I agree. I love the soundtrack and I really admired the camera shots. I feel like it made the entire series feel more real, and it really added that historical accuracy that I always look for in Vikings-related shows and films. I understand that the same artist created the Last Kingdom soundtrack as your series did, Kayla. I was glad to see you allowed for the series to be more historically accurate, as I couldn't really imagine the series with a different soundtrack. I feel like it brought each scene to life.
Yes, our opening theme song and our ending theme are written and sung by Ivor.
Here's a clip of the theme song for the series.
Her voice never ceases to astound me.
I agree.
I really appreciate you coming on the show today, Kayla. You answered so many questions Isabela and I had about female Vikings, mythology, and the level of historical accuracy incorporated into your series.
I'm even more excited for you to screenwrite another Vikings-related series or film in your future. You are always welcome to return and chat with us about Vikings. Do you know if you are renewed for a second season, Kayla?
Unfortunately, I am unable to disclose that information as of right now, but keep your eye out for any special announcements coming soon.
I understand. I will be keeping an eye out. You have given such great insight into your thought process behind creating this series. I want to thank you for joining us and our fans who continue to support us. Thank you to those who participated in the poll. On our online store, you can listen to more of our episodes or purchase merchandise. Our newest release is our podcast logo bookmarks. Visit our website, talesoftravelandtriumph.com, to purchase them.
I will keep an eye out as well. Thank you so much, Kayla, and a huge thank you to our viewers for joining me and Isabela for this episode of Tales of Travel and Triumph. Join us next month for a special episode all about Marco Polo's travels.